Starfield is a fantastic game, but there are so many things in it that feel like huge missed opportunities or problems. From outposts and ammo to smuggling and why the Crimson Fleet questline is such a problem. Today we're going to look at 12 things that are an issue in Starfield, as well as some ingenious community suggestions as to how to improve them. I won't be dropping any quest or story spoilers in this video, and I would also love to hear your thoughts on what you think are the big issues right now, and if you have any suggestions for improving any of the things that I talk about in today's video. Number 1. Outposts. One of the biggest parts of the game that has been criticized for falling short of the mark is outpost building. Whilst I have had some fun doing it and you can make things that look pretty cool, there isn't really any purpose to outpost building outside of RP, aesthetics, and for grinding XP and a few credits. With a small amount of time invested, you can have an outpost that's automated to generate thousands of raw resources and component parts, and there just isn't really a huge amount to do with it all, apart from farm XP or build more outposts. As well as that, the building options when compared to Fallout 4 are very limited without there even being any basic foundation blocks available. There have been some great community suggestions as to how to make outposts more viable. One of my favorites is the idea of being able to craft ammo using resources from them. Ammo is one of the few things that you constantly burn through in large quantities and would give a genuinely useful thing that you could set up an automated factory for at an outpost. Another great idea I saw is being able to acquire contracts to supply companies in the game with large amounts of resources or components on a regular basis for large sums of money. There are already some resource delivery contracts in the game, but I like the idea of having regular contracts that just go out automatically every in-game week, something like that. For example, having a shipment of 10,000 or 20,000 iron or a large batch of components going out each week to one of the big shipyards in the game, and they pay you tens of thousands of credits when you send it over. This also helps with some of the restrictions on vendors and the amount of credits they have, which is something we'll touch on a little bit later. Stuff like this would add a real depth and use to outposts that I just don't think is there right now. I do really enjoy building them, but it'd be nice to have some more practicality and function to them outside of just making them look nice and farming XP. Number 2. Skill points. Something I find a bit frustrating is the sheer volume of abilities that are locked behind skill points in the game and how long it takes to acquire even the basics. I found I fairly quickly got to a point where I felt I had to go and grind XP just to be able to get some very basic skills that I was missing. If you want to be able to fly any ship, build outposts, craft weapon and spacesuit mods, pick locks, use basic ship combat skills, boost packs, pickpocket, you basically need to spend 30 plus levels worth of skill points just to unlock these things without ever even touching any of the skills for helping efficiency, combat, social abilities, or medding. My main character is level 37 with about 80 hours played, and because I wanted to try out crafting, outpost building, and a bit of planet scanning, I don't have a single skill point yet spent on the combat or social tree, only a handful spent on physical. It's great to have so many options, but I feel like either the leveling up needs to be faster or they need to dish out bonus skill points for other things in the game. If I now wanted to get some of the cool skills down near the bottom of the combat tree maxed out on my character, it's going to take me a huge amount of time invested in grinding or using an XP farm, which just feels kind of stupid, all because I took a few basic outpost and crafting skills early on. Number 3. Shipbuilding and the dreaded miscellaneous tab. This is more of a straightforward one. Anytime you change pretty much anything on your entire ship, including the color, it moves every single item in your ship into the cargo hold. This means that if you decide to swap out a few modules in your ship for something different, or just add a couple of small pieces, you can end up with hundreds of bits of junk in your cargo hold that you then have to mind-numbingly sell or jettison into space. I've had this when swapping out modules in my ship and then going and have a look and see what those modules look like, go back, change a different module, go and have a look in your ship, and then it turns out once you finish that process, you then have hundreds of forks, hundreds of cups, and hundreds of playing cards in your miscellaneous inventory that you then need to sit there and clear out. Not only is this very annoying and fills up your cargo, it also makes it kind of pointless, or at best very risky, decorating any of your ships. If you decide to spend hours placing items nicely around your ship to make it look cool, filling up your armory with weapons and gear, you can then lose it all into the hold just because you needed to upgrade your fuel tank. This system could definitely work better, and it would be great to see at least only items move to the hold when you change that specific module. Number 4. Vendors. As has often been tradition over the years in Bethesda games, the vendors in Starfield often have a woefully short supply of credits available to buy your stuff. The problem is worse in Starfield, I think, though, as the economy is kind of crazy and you can easily have a need to spend hundreds of thousands of credits on a large ship build, and trying to acquire that by selling things to vendors who rarely have more than 10 or 11,000 credits, if you're lucky, is extremely tedious and time consuming. Modded vendors with huge pockets is a bit of a tradition in these games, but it would be great to see this catered for better in the base game. Give us some high wealth vendors that you can unlock as you progress further through the game. Give us vendors that increase wealth as you level. Give us more options for making big chunks of money like the Outpost ideas mentioned earlier. I think the sheer size and scale of some of the things you might want to buy and or build in Starfield really does warrant a bit of a rethink of the game's economy. Number 5. Favorite or key locations. I think a list of favorite locations you can pull up, or a list of major cities or colonies visited in a more easily readable list format would be super helpful in the game. The star map is a bit clunky and it doesn't really give you much detail of what is where without you digging into each system to remind yourself. It's pretty much just a black screen with some dots on it and about 4 words. There are major cities that I've just forgotten even existed and where they are because I haven't been there since passing through once for a mission, or places that you didn't even know were there because you haven't clicked through to that particular planet and seen that it exists. I think because of the nature of the star map not being a nice visual experience like you get in Fallout or Skyrim, it's easy for things to get lost or forgotten about. You don't just scan the map, see a cool looking place and think you'll try it out. It's just a load of dots and you have to kind of click them and go there and see if it's a unique location. And it would also be nice to just be able to have a little list of bookmarks of places you like to visit often, like your outposts and maybe some particular cities. Number 6. A list of scanned locations and species. As someone who really enjoys the scanning and exploration side of the game, it feels like a really big missed trick to not have any kind of database or log that you can view showing what you've explored and scanned. I want to be able to pull up a list of all of the planets and moons I've visited, what my scan completion of them is, what resources and traits they have, what resources the flora and fauna that I've scanned will drop, and all of this other info that I've spent hours gathering only to sell it for cash and then it be pretty much invisible to me. Number 7. Smuggling is kind of pointless. The smuggling side of things sounded really exciting before the game's release, and when you first find contraband and the game tells you about planets scanning you for it and needing shielded cargo space to hide it, it all sounded very cool. But the reality is there isn't really any point smuggling anything. You just fly to the den where you don't get scanned and sell it there, and it kind of makes the entire smuggling process completely redundant. I'd love to see much higher prices offered for dodgy goods when you've gone to the effort to smuggle them into a system, which in turn would need higher vendor inventories or specific vendors you go to sell these contraband goods. I think there's a lot more they could do with these game mechanics, and I would love to see that be a part of a future DLC rather than relying on community mods. Number 8. Traversing planets. Moving around planets is just a little bit slow. I'm not super bothered about them putting vehicles in, though I'm certainly not against it, but it would be great to have a boost pack or similar mechanic that was designed specifically for increasing lateral movement speed to help you move around planets more quickly when exploring. If you have a good oxygen build, you can move across the surface reasonably quickly, but it can still be a bit tedious, especially when trying to get all of the traits on a planet. Of course, there is a skill that helps reveal traits with planetary scans, but that's another 4 levels of skill points to spend when you already have 47 other things you need to spend points on. Number 9. weapon and spacesuit mods. I think the whole modding and crafting system could do with a bit of an overhaul. Not being able to remove and repurpose or even recycle weapon and suit mods is really frustrating, as well as having so many fairly basic things like changing between semi-auto and automatic locked behind a huge wall of skill points. I started down the road of crafting mods early on in the game, and now many hours in, I've still got things I haven't unlocked because I need to spend more skill points to get some moderately useful upgrades on my gear that just end up in the trash if I find a slightly better version when I'm out exploring. It would be great to be able to craft loads more things like medkits, ammo, and all these other useful consumable items that you use a lot of, and this would also really help eat through the piles of resources you build up over time that you just don't really have much use for. Number 10. The Crimson Fleet. A little thing that I found quite annoying early game was that after I started the Crimson Fleet storyline, whilst just accepting whatever random missions were popping up, I suddenly found that I'd accidentally ruined a large chunk of the random outpost and space encounters in the game. If you find an outpost on a planet to go and clear, turns out most of them are full of Crimson Fleet pirates, and now they're my friends. Visit a new system and see some pirates attacking someone, turns out you're friends with both of them. For me, I felt I accidentally fell into a situation where I was suddenly allied with a very common bad guy that I would really rather just fight. I would prefer there to be more outposts and ship encounters with spacers or other unaffiliated generic bad guys, so that these dungeons weren't ruined by you being allied with the Crimson Fleet and just being able to casually walk through and pick up all the loot or attack them and then get a bounty for it. Number 11. Just a small one this time. There isn't really any way currently to view all of the buffs you've received through special skill magazines. You can view them in your inventory if you still have the actual magazine, but it would be much nicer if you just have it shown on your status page somewhere, showing you have +1 to this, +10 to that, as a nice clear display of exactly how many and what you've gained so far. This could also help give you an idea of maybe what you have left to collect magazine-wise and how far along in terms of completion you are on that. Number 12. Let us use the Brig. This one is probably a bit more niche, but our ships allow us to build a very cool looking brig with computer controlled doors on it. As well as that, the game has mechanics to allow you to knock people unconscious rather than kill them. Please let us take bounties alive or kidnap people, take prisoners, etc., and use the brig on your ship or a brig in your outpost to keep them secure and then ransom them or collect money for handing them in. So those are my little gripes with Starfield. Like I said, I think the game is fantastic and I have no intention of putting it down anytime soon, but I think there is some real room for improvement in some of those areas. Please let me know in the comments your thoughts on these topics and also on any other aspects of the game you feel could be improved. If you've enjoyed this video, I've got loads of tips, tricks and guides out for Starfield on my channel with loads more planned, so drop a like and a sub if you'd like to catch more like this. Thanks so much for watching. My name's Ben, we are the Beard Guys, and I'll see you next time.